Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Hot Rods and Hand Grenades podcast hosted by Explosive Customs. We got two guests in tonight. Kyle's been mentioned a lot, hasn't sat down with us yet. And our dad, Mike Adcock, in from out of town. Squeeze us in at the last second, you're headed home tomorrow.
Yeah.
But been waiting to get this one going.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
Busy man. There's a lot to cover on it. I
Yeah.
don't think we'll get it all tonight, but we can certainly do another one if
Have to
needed.
do a virtual one sometime.
We could do that too.
Maybe get my dad on that.
But we got for sure.
How you work this thing?
None of us get up to the Great White North very often. He never comes up this way.
No,
No.
no. It doesn't matter if it's a wedding or
Yeah. Yeah.
he's not coming.
No.
Florida, it's warm all the time, and I don't blame him. But it's warm here right now, you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, he'd be right at home.
Yep. So, I like to tell everybody that we get to blame you for getting us into this mess, getting all this started for us.
Yeah.
And we're running with it. We're doing our thing. We're certainly trying our best.
Doing an
But,
amazing job.
It all stems back from nights in the garage, hanging out with you, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't intentional, like forcing you guys into this. It just kind of happened, you know. And the same way with me, you know. My dad, you know, my parents were the best mentors ever, you know, and I had a lot of great mentors over the years in this business, but that's just kind of what happened, you know. We worked on cars all the time, did a lot of restoration, which was awesome, and I just fell in love with doing this stuff, you know, because we did some really cool cars, you know, and as a kid, you know, I just saw these cool cars coming and going. It was never about the money or anything, you know. I didn't understand that. It was just, we were around cars all the time, you know, and my dad had cool cars, and everybody he knew had cool cars, and he used to take me everywhere with him, you know, to his friends' houses, because they all had kids my age, you know, so we all hung out, whether we were at Santa Fe watching the TTs, or, you know, at a car show, the World of Wheels, you know, wherever, or other dirt bike races that some of the kids were doing. It's just, that's how life was. I didn't think anything was any different. I thought everybody did that.
Yeah.
He even knew a guy who was building an airplane in his garage,
Yeah.
you know, and we used to go out there.
Yeah.
So we were surrounded by fabricators and painters and mechanics, and I just thought that's
Normal.
what you did.
Yeah.
And, you know, as time went on, like teenager, you know, one of his good friends, Uncle Ed, who wasn't really my uncle, but he was Uncle Eddie, you know. Anytime we did a car that needed pinstriping on it, or lettering, or flames, or something cool, he'd have Uncle Eddie come in and do it. And, you know, a couple of Corvettes that we did back in the day with, you know, flared fenders and, you know, L88 hood scoops on them and stuff, C2s that had crazy modifications on. But, you know, those cars needed crazy stuff on them.
Yeah.
You know, pinstriping and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So he would come in and do that stuff for us, and he didn't mind letting me look over his shoulder and watch what he was doing, you know. And he was pinstriping I remember the car was a 79 Camaro, black, that belonged to somebody in the neighborhood, and the girl across the street ran into it at the grocery store. And that's how we met this guy Ralph with the Camaro, because she said, "Oh, the guy across the street fixes cars," you know. So that's how we met him. He brought the car to us, had that giant rubber front end on it, you know. And he's like, "Well, as long as we're doing the car, let's do something fun with it," you know. So we, not we, I was just a kid, you know, watching everything at that time, but anyway, put some cool stripes on it on that hood scoop and pinstripe the car and all that. And Eddie at one point gave me a pinstriping brush, you know, an extra one that he had, and some paint. He was like, practice, just practice. That's the best I can tell you, you know. So I pinstriped everything in my dad's garage, you know.
I
Tool
remember the
boxes,
garage door was covered in it.
yeah, the cabinets and everything. And I don't know that I've improved much after 40 years, but I had a good time, you know, doing it. And I had customer cars lined up in the driveway. I was like 15, you know, doing pinstriping on them and doing trucks. You know, Grandma had a trucking company, so it was cool. She let me stripe their trucks and do some lettering on some of them, which was harder to do, you know. But then my dad knew some guys that had tow trucks and stuff that I got to pinstripe, and I got to making some pretty good money before I was even old enough to drive, you know. So that was pretty cool. And that's kind of where it turned into, wow, you know, everybody doesn't know how to do this stuff, you know, and you can make money at this stuff. So yeah, I just kept practicing, and you know, that's the best advice I could give to anybody that wants to do anything really. Like, I've wanted to play the guitar my whole life, but I never practiced. You know, I've taken lessons and everything, and it's not the teacher's fault. It's that I didn't practice. I did this stuff, you know. So anyway, got to, you know, get a little better at the stuff, and had some amazing mentors over the years. When I got out of high school, I worked at a local body shop. Great people, still friends with them today, best people ever. And kind of took it from there. You know, my dad taught me so much on the restoration side, making the cars really nice, you know, attention to detail, you know, not being in a rush, making sure that everything's right. And then working at Pullman's was a collision repair type thing. And since their name was on the front of the building, the cars had to be perfect. You know, everybody there was family, and it was a pretty cool honor to, you know, when I was looking for a place to work, they were like, yeah, I'm thinking about, you know, putting somebody on. And I stayed there for 14 years after high school, you know. And
You were the only one that wasn't family that whole time?
yeah, other than they had one mechanic that wasn't family, but it was really cool. And they treated me like family. You know, I was involved. We were all involved on the outside. You know, outside the shop, and going to street races. I never participated myself. I was a spectator. But you know, and going to the racetrack, and you know, they race stock cars and everything. Just what an awesome, you know, awesome way to come up in the business. You know, learn frame, you know, from them, from Bobby, best frame guy to this day that I ever met. You know, and body work from Jimmy, and you know, working with their boys. We all kind of grew up together in this, and it was awesome. You know, and like I said, they're fantastic people. They're all, you know, the shop is closed and they're all down to other things, but I still keep in touch with them and all that, which is cool. So anyway, then I went on. I had a chance to work. I had never even heard of a commission body shop at that point, you know. And I had this guy out of the blue offer me a job at a commission shop, and I'm like, well, I guess I've heard of that, but what, you know.
What do I work on?
I was like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of where I'm at a long time. What kind of happened, you know? It's like no beef, you know, then or what we were doing, you know. But it was significantly more money, you know, being on commission, and you know, had gotten married during those years, and had Nick, and you know, there's never enough money. Once you have kids, it's go time, you know. So you know, I went to them and explained it, and they were all like, hey man, you gotta do what you gotta do for your family. We'd all take that opportunity if we had to. So, you know, never burn any bridges. You know, that was a big lesson for me. You know, always leave on good terms if you have to. So then I went to the commission side of things, and I don't know that I was thrilled with it because it was like a sausage factory. You know, that's what I call it. It was crazy money, but you know, I was used to making cars. It was about making the cars perfect, and it got farther and farther away from the restoration stuff that I loved to do. I always did that on the side, you know, doing restorations and stuff. But then it just became living, you know, from that point. So we
You mean you're not used to just painting over 180 on a DA?
Yeah.
Get the car done and out.
That's what it became.
Yeah.
Just customers gonna be here in 4 hours. You gotta get it out, you know. So I
Shit's still drying when you put it together.
Yeah, I never cared for that very much. But you know, then we were just working on everyday cars. We weren't, you know, restoring, you know, Tri-5 Chevys anymore. Once in a while at Pullman's, we still, you know, did some restoration
I feel like
cars.
they used to do like one restoration a year
Yeah,
with all the collision stuff.
yeah, because they knew so many people. I mean, just awesome. I mean, I still run into people that, you know, lived in Oakland. They're not car people, but they were like, oh yeah, I used to get my brakes done there, you know, back in, you know, in the 80s or whatever. You know, everybody knew that they were the neighborhood shop.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was really cool, you know, to be a part of that. And you know, it's still great to talk to those guys. And you know, I know for me, I don't think we really realized what a great situation that was.
Yeah.
You know,
Till
until you
till
go
you
on to
look
something
back,
else. Yeah, you go, man, I kind of took that for granted. You know, so. But anyway, that's, you know, where all the body work and paint and all that came, and there was, you know, tons of that. And then at one point I had an opportunity to teach. I don't know if I can say the name of the school or not, probably shouldn't, but had an opportunity to teach at a technical school, which was way outside the box, you know. But it was pretty cool because the collision program was new for the school at that time. They closed their diesel program and made it into a body shop. So that was really cool, and they weren't really prepared. They were kind of winging it.
The shop was well equipped though, I remember that.
It was, and they didn't mess around when it came to that. So it was cool to be a part of like the shop layout and, you know, kind of some additional equipment that I thought they needed. And
A lot of
stuff.
cleaning to get a greasy diesel shop ready to do auto body.
Probably, but they didn't mess around.
No, that place was like a museum.
Yeah, they said the coating on the floor was like $2 million or something crazy. You know, I mean, it was nice. But I had never taught before, you know. But what I relied on to get into that was remembering myself learning the business, you know, and the mentors that I had over the years, and the things that helped me, tips and tricks and, you know, general practices. And that's, to this day, you know, I'm still teaching, and I just kind of remember the way things were taught to me and think about what additional things could have helped me even more, you know. I mean, my dad was awesome about, you know, we were doing a pink 58 Cadillac for a guy. And I think I was probably 14 or so, 13. So we sprayed the car at his house, and you know, I used to get home from school. I guess I was in high school. I used to get home at whatever 3:30. Dad would get home at 4:30, 5 o'clock, or whatever. So I'd usually, if we were prepping the car, I'd try to do as much prep as I could So when he came home, my hope was that he could just put the paint in the car and spray it, you know, and that got to working pretty good, you know. So after that particular car, we painted it, and then however long we waited, it probably was lacquer in those days on that car. And I was thinking, you know, I couldn't pay attention in school when the teacher's talking, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm gonna try buffing that Cadillac, you know, and help Dad out, you know. And so I got home, and I had seen him buff hundreds of cars, but never really knew how, if you press down on the buffer, you know, how fast you turn it. So I put some compound on the hood, put the buffer on there, and I guess I was pushing down because I went right to the metal, man. Just breathe, you know?
That's okay. We see a lot of people that call themselves detailers and they still do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, yeah, 3 or 4 passes, and there was not a shot, man. It was crazy. So, not too long, you know, a half hour later or whatever, my dad gets home, and I'm thinking, oh man, you know. But, you know, I told him, I said, I was trying to help you out and get buffing on it, you know, so we can get it done. And he's like, oh, how do you know? You know, he never freaked out about nothing or, you know, anything. And, so we, you know, masked off the hood and sanded it and repainted it that night, you know, no big deal. So, you know, that still helps me to this day, you know, teaching the students. So yeah, anyway, my first school, and basically had to learn how to be a teacher at that point. But I just kind of thought about all the people who taught me and tried to live up to that, you know. And the other crazy thing about that was, since the program was new, they didn't have a curriculum. You know, they had iCar DVDs in those days. So everything went by, you know, iCar and all that. But there was no books, there was no curriculum, there was no forum whatsoever. So I got to help create that. Myself and 2 other guys were the first 3 hired, and we created the curriculum for that, which was, you know, so far out of my wheelhouse, you know, at that point. But learned a lot of cool things, you know, early on. And yeah, I don't even know where to start on that, you know. Just trying to help them, you know, knowing what you use in the industry and some things that they were lacking. You know, I went to one of the administrators, this guy Larry, he was an awesome guy. And I said, yeah, I was like a little pissed off. We didn't have certain things, you know, that really would help to teach. And he puts his arm around me and he goes, son, I'm going to tell you something. He said, if you have a red marker and you need a green one and there ain't one around, use the damn red one. You know? So that was right out of the gate, you know, with teaching, you know, you got to improv quite a bit and work with what you have. You know how to show somebody to do things, you know what to do and how to do it. Sometimes you just gotta get creative with how you present it. So, and that also has helped me to this day, you know.
And you probably have to make little adjustments to get through to each student.
For sure.
Because
For sure.
different people retain things
Yeah,
differently.
they learn at a different rate for sure. And
So that's a whole nother skill, is learning how to gauge what kind of student
that
they
took
are,
some-
and you have to learn how to teach that type of student.
yeah, that took some, you know, first of all, recognizing that, you know, never having done anything like that before. And it didn't take long to be like, I always had 2 or 3 guys that, you know, maybe also grew up around cars and their dad was handy and taught things or whatever. Boom, they would just run with it,
Yeah.
doing really well. And I'd have, you know, a handful of guys that just, man, you know, not getting it, you know. So spend extra time, you know, with who needs it, and, you know, make sure they understand they can ask questions and all that. The teaching has just been a huge gift, you know, because at the point when I started teaching, my knees were starting to hurt and my back was hurting, you know, because I never really thought about it when I was your age. I'd dive under a car on my knees on that cold concrete, you know, and just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And then it started taking a toll. You know, you guys probably feel it already.
Got some days.
Yeah.
So,
I need to do a little more PPE kind of stuff.
yeah,
I
at
never
least
use a mat. I never.
yeah, at least a piece of cardboard or something.
We have plenty of them. There's ads,
Yeah, we got rubber
everywhere in
mats
the shop,
everywhere.
all over the place. And we're the two worst ones at using all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, even the other guys are good at, you know, even a piece of cardboard if they don't know where one of the mats is or anything like that, all padded knee, kneeling mats and everything. But, you know,
Yeah, I don't even think about it as
me and him, we just
go for it.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it as an injury or a long-term thing. I just once I break the ice of being dirty, I just slide around on the ground for the whole rest of the day.
usually he just comes in the door and rolls on the floor a couple times and puts it in the mood. He's ready to go.
Yeah, gotta break the ice every day.
No, I get it, because you're focused on getting done what you need to get done, you know, you're not thinking about,
And the day gets away from you so fast, and you know you start looking around for something every time you spend 10 minutes looking for a kneeling pad. You know, you're I screw this up. Let's get it done.
Do you feel like teaching keeps you sharp? Like you keep your skills
For
are
sure, yeah,
tip
because
top
I,
and you stay down?
still try to learn new things. The basic idea of this whole thing, body of paint, is never going to change, but the products and the tools and, you know, the chemistry involved now, you know, with the paints and colors that change color and all that stuff is, so I, you know, try to stay on top of all that and change with it so I can keep the students current on that.
And you're still spraying with an Olmex.
Still using a 35-year-old spray gun. Love it.
That's awesome.
But,
So,
yeah.
with the teaching, the first college, you know, that really helped you. I remember how excited and nervous you were about that because I was actually enrolled in biotech at the time, and you had said, you know, after a year, your own kids can go tuition free, just pay for books and tools and you know whatever else you need, and. You know, I love telling everybody this whole thing would be for that because, you know, I backed out of biotech. I remember they were furious. That was like, you know, who knows where I'd be now if I would have gone that way. You know, quite a few biotech graduates, they've all done well, but
It's a great school.
I feel like I had enough of a background in this that I think I either could have excelled really well there or I would have felt like I was sandbagging. I don't know if it could have gone either way. But being that I grew up around all of this, and, you know, looking back now, I think we made the best choice. But I tell everybody, you know, that I took a program that had nothing to do with cars, and I tried to get away from automotive. You know, it was all, you know, low voltage stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and then I don't know. I mean, I wasn't far through the program yet, and they wanted to start like working the programs back and forth. So, you know, I mean, the auto body, you know, you guys custom painted in Celica, and then mechanical, put motor trans in and everything, ran through all the stuff on that. I think they did wheels, tires, suspension, and stuff like that. And then they wanted the low voltage stuff, you know, and I think they only did that because you're my dad and, you know, being the next department over or whatever, I mean, they knew that I had a background in cars. But that was fun. I mean, we did that stereo system and did the whole interior build in it, and
That was badass. That car was
TV
so
and
good.
Xbox in the car and all that stuff. I mean, it was neat.
Fish tank.
We didn't get to do the fish tank, but it was fun to tie the programs together, you know. And then I graduated, and a couple of years later, they called me and said, like, "Hey, we can't get anybody to figure out how to use any of this that you did in the car." And I mean, we used it. I don't know, we used it once or twice, you know, and a couple of the kids that I recruited from our program to come and help with it, and they all did well. I mean, the one kid used to manage a Circuit City, and he was the manager of their car audio department. That's all he did was car audio at Circuit City. And you know, Gerardo, I mean, when he helped out with all that too, I mean, he's just a wiring genius, you know, so I mean, it was cool, because I did all the woodwork and the build out and everything like that. We got everything where it needed to be, and we had one running wire and one, you know, understanding how all that stuff needed to work together, and but we all had a good understanding of it because we explained it to each other, and the car worked really well, you know, and then they would take it to schools and show it off, I don't know, for a short period of time when we were still there, because we ran somebody through it, and then we all graduated at the same time, and like I said, I think it was like a year later, they called me and they're like, hey, we can't figure out how to work this thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, nobody here knows how to use it. So I went to the school and I showed them and ran through it, and somebody had a bunch of garbage unplugged and everything and changed some stuff around and thought they were gonna make it better.
Yeah.
And, you know, they could have if they used different equipment, but I mean, that was just stuff that the school and instructors had laying around. I mean, we weren't using brand new stuff, you know, I mean, we just, you know, we kind of Frankenstein that thing together and made it work.
What you got?
But I got everything working, and then they couldn't figure it out again later. I saw them a couple years later at World of Wheels, and I asked that same guy that called me, you know, to try to figure it out. And he's like, nah, I don't know. The car's like, I think they crushed it or something like that. You know, they didn't even do anything with the car. And then he was saying that they were doing away with the program and you know, stuff like that. So, but it was cool to be a part of something that, you know, nobody else figured out how to do that again. It's like, you know, come on, nobody's in a car that haul anymore. Come on.
Yeah. And you got an associate's degree out of that, which was, you know, everybody talks about the importance of it, but man, people coming out of school with $300,000 in school debt, you know, and they're
Making $30,000 a year.
yeah, that's horrible. So that's another thing I love about this is, you know, getting people an opportunity to make darn good money. I mean, I got so many former students well into six figures and no school debt at all.
That's awesome. And that school, you know, I know that one led to another teaching opportunity for you. You know, I mean, obviously you wanted to get out of Illinois and, you know, go somewhere warm. So, you know, when you made the move to Florida, I think part of the timing of all of that was landing the teaching gig down there, and that was a dying program.
Yeah, and I didn't see that coming. Like, so, you know, we had houses down there from the whole foreclosure era in '09 that never worked out good. You know, renting out houses and stuff is just, looks good on paper.
Yeah,
The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
No, because, you know, they quit paying, it takes 6 months to get them out, they kick holes in the walls, you gotta pay a fortune to fix the house. But anyway, that was one of the big reasons for moving down there, aside from getting out of the cold. We were just kind of waiting for the opportune moment. And when Kyle graduated in May of 15, I gave my notice at the first school.
Mm-hmm.
And I had talked about it, but they didn't really think I was going to do it. And, you know, for me, I was like, well, you know, because I was at that first school for almost 6 years, and got to, you know, feeling pretty good about teaching and all. And I thought, well, it was a great opportunity, you know, great time in my life, time to figure something else out. Well, when I got to Florida, they had posted for an instructor at the school down there, which was also a college, technical college. And the gentleman that was teaching there for like 18 years passed away during summer break of 2015, which I hated, you know, that it worked out that way. But they posted the job and, you know, boom, fell right into it. So it just isn't more meant to be than that, because I never thought I'd teach again when I left, you know, and headed to Florida. So boom, fell right back into that. And it also, because John, I never got to meet the former instructor, I won't say his last name, was sick for a long time. I think he had cancer for a couple of years. He was battling that. So he wasn't really put a lot into the program, and it was dwindling.
Mm-hmm.
They only had a few students, you know, when I took it over. It was just losing popularity. I had heard, you know, being in paint stores and being around, you know, other people in the industry, they said what a horrible reputation it had, you know. So I was like, I don't care, this will be awesome, you know. So I wasn't a bad shop, a little behind times and everything, but
We can use that red marker and made it work.
that's what I did. Yep. And I, the whole time, you know, because once I did get in, then I learned about, oh yeah, the old instructor died and all that, and I just felt horrible about that. And his teaching certificates were on the wall and everything, and I left all that stuff. That was John's program as far as I was concerned. I was just the next curator of it, you
Yep.
know, and I was lucky enough to stay there another 6 years doing that. So it was awesome. You know, we put in a few things, you know, equipment, it didn't even have a lift, you know, or anything, and so I was able to get them to buy some expensive equipment that we needed, and kind of turned it around, turned it into something. Within a couple of semesters, I had people on a waiting list waiting to take that class, you know. And same thing at the first school. You know, we created that whole curriculum from nothing, and they had a campus in Indianapolis, and I kept saying, why don't we just go to Indianapolis and see what they're doing? And they're like, no. You know, they knew nothing about what we did, but they're like, we want ours to be better than theirs, so we're gonna make our own.
We gotta know what they're doing.
I said, yeah, how do we know what the benchmark is? You know? So we didn't get to go to India. I was actually gonna go there on my own on a weekend or something, and you know,
Do some scouting.
yeah, meet up with the curator there and see how they were doing it. But we did it, you know, cold. So we turned that into something, and man, I think in less than a year we had 7 instructors, and we had morning and night classes. You know, there were so many people in line for that. We had to do night classes as well. So it really took off. So so I was at the school in Florida for, you know, quite a long time, and we were at that point we were living in Florida for 9 years. You know, at that point, and just thought for kicks, the Florida school system doesn't pay very well, and we thought, okay, you know, maybe our time in Florida is, you know, run its course. And my wife, when she wants to find something, she can research and find anything. Well, there was a school in Tennessee that needed an instructor, and this school in South Carolina, and she's like, I said, yeah, but we don't live there, you know? She's like, well, what's the worst that could happen?
Good.
Apply, see what happens. Sure enough, I had to call, like, when you start filling out an application, evidently it pings them, and they can see what you're doing, and at that point I had, one of the first things I had to do is submit your resume, and I got a call like the next day after I started filling that out, and they said, yeah, hi, we're from such and such school, we see that you're filling out an application. I said, yeah. They said, well, we've got your resume, and I'm calling to make sure that you finish filling that application out. And so I'm like, okay. So we talked a little bit, and they gave me a little rundown on what was going on. They were without an instructor for almost 3 years. They just couldn't keep anyone in there. Everyone was teaching right out of the shop, like I did when I started in Illinois here. It's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of guys wouldn't stick with it, and a lot of guys were just assholes, and they wouldn't keep them.
Yeah.
Like the last 3 that they had in there, they were like, we just couldn't deal with them.
Yeah.
They were just, you know, like most people you run into in this business.
Yeah.
So they booted him, and I guess the last guy was running his business out there. He was having students do his customer cars for his shop. And you know, they caught him, and naturally they got rid of him. So yeah, I did finish filling that out, and then they naturally, because I was in Florida and they were in South Carolina, we did a phone, like a Zoom thing, you know, and the first thing they said to me is, "You're the answer to our prayers." And I was like, okay, looks like we're probably moving to South Carolina. You know, I'd never been to South Carolina, but it's a really neat school, and it's actually high school level this time, which is something different for me. Again, it's been new challenges each time, which has been pretty cool. And this school has been in the worst shape of anything that I've, you know, worked with. So they were very willing to put in some equipment that I recommended, and they've been really good about that. Great people. And it's already showing signs. It hasn't even been a year that I've been there yet, and it's already, you know, we've got lots of kids wanting to take the class. And the way it works is there's 7 high schools in the surrounding towns, and if they choose an elective, whether it's construction or electricity or law enforcement, nursing, they have a lot of stuff there, auto mechanics, auto body. If they choose an elective, then they come to us. So it's pretty cool. It's neat to work with the younger kids, which, you know, I wasn't sure about, you know, but it's been working out pretty good.
And the new challenges with that, I mean, keeping the kids focused and you know, putting an interest in it. I mean, that's something that, you know, I think so far every episode here I've talked with somebody on getting kids interested in this.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way.
Yeah.
And it seems to be a more frequent conversation everywhere we go. To start, you know, I mean, everybody just says, it just seems like kids don't have any interest in a lot of this stuff anymore. And, you know, there was a time, you know, in, like, you know, growing up and everything where it was like domestic cars versus imports,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And now, you don't even care if kids are into imports or if they're into, you know, whatever. If it's got 4 wheels and a motor,
Yeah.
and they can cut it up and do something cool with it, and
Definitely.
buy something and customize it,
Yep.
it's like, please just start
do something.
doing something with a car and learn something about it, and you know, because that passion's got to come back. And
Yeah.
you know, I love telling people about what you do, because, you know, especially now, I feel like this is your best teaching opportunity yet.
Yeah.
For, you know, the next generation.
Mhm.
You know, because even at both colleges, I mean, you had a lot of kids that were out of school, you know, right out of college and things like that. But I mean, you had people that came through a class that were older than you.
For sure.
You know, and I mean, so you get people of all ages. You can decide to go back to college at any point in life. And you did have a lot of older students.
Yep.
You know, people in their late 20s or into their 30s, you know, and up from there. And there's nothing wrong with that. You've had plenty of them. You know, you've told me that you have plenty of them that did it to turn their lives around for whatever reason they had.
Yeah.
And
to
it did.
reinvent themselves. They lost, you know, during the economy problems in 2009, 2010, stuff like that. People lost their job, their pension, everything, and they were like, okay, I gotta figure something out. So
Yep.
I had several guys that took the class because they're like, well, I was always interested in cars, and I thought, I gotta support my family somehow. And they didn't have like a college degree that they could go and get some office job or something. They like working with their hands, so they took the class, you know, to figure it out. I had one student at the first school, which I still keep in touch with. That was at least 12, 14 years ago. He was played baseball since he was a little kid and put himself through college, and he was in minor leagues, or what they call it, AAA or whatever. And he was for sure going to be a pro baseball player, you know. Well, he injured himself, tore something in one of his legs somehow, and he had to have surgery and all kinds of stuff, and the doctors were like, look, you're just not going to be able to, probably not even swing the bat, you know, you don't have the muscle control even for that. So he was lost. That's all he was counting on his whole life, being able to be a pro ball player. And so he took the class in there and did really, really well. But he especially liked estimating, you know, because we do everything from tearing the car down, you know, writing estimates, you know, how to do supplements with the insurance company. We show him all that. Well, he really liked writing estimates, and I got him in a shop as an estimator right out of school, and great personality on this kid, just all around, you know, great guy. And man, I think it was probably within a year he was making over 100,000, because you know a lot of those are commission, you know, not just writing estimates. You got to kind of be a salesman, you know, because they're most likely out getting 3 estimates for the insurance company.
Yeah, showing up on time, getting there before the other guys.
Yeah.
Say you're gonna be there Monday and actually showing up.
Yeah. So he did really well, and then I think within a year after that, they made him a partner. It was a chain body shop. They made him a partner, and then, like I said, we've kept in touch, texting over the years over the holidays and talking once in a while. He's since got married and had kids, and you know, all that was possible because he was able to figure out a new way to make a living. You know, and I just love it. I love passing it on while I'm around to do it. It helps me to still be a part of it. I wish I could still be a tech. I really do. You know, it's never been about the money. It's just loving this business, loving fixing cars. The business sucks. I had my own shop for a number of years, and just kind of had enough. And everybody says the same thing. You know, people coming in, they want, you know, they see some car on TV that they built in a week, and yeah, that's what I want to do. Well, it don't work that way.
No.
And you know, you try to explain to them, well, you know, and they don't want to spend any money. You know, so when I had the shop and I had to rely on that for my living, I couldn't, you know, you got to keep the lights on in place. You know, people don't understand that. It's like you want to walk into where they work and tell them to cut their labor rate.
Yeah, exactly. And we deal with that, and that happens. And we talk to so many other shops, you know, in the area, and you know, places that do what we do, or even just mom and pop mechanical shops and anything like that. And it's everywhere, and everybody's always going to do that.
Yeah.
The toughest side of it, though, is, you know, business is tough no matter what. But you've got, you know, mom and pop shops that do mechanical repair work and things like that. You know, if you're doing a whole fleet of trucks for a landscape company and they screw you out of money, don't fix the next truck.
Yeah.
And take the next landscape company and get it done. You know, and go put flyers up at all the local grocery stores and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? And so, at least cars are always going to break. You always have to, you know, you always have to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice that we can fall back on that if we have to. But you know, we're really focused on just building custom cars, and that makes it really tough. You know, and for you, I mean, you know, you did insurance work and things like that, but a lot of what you were doing was custom paint, and you did some badass bikes. You know, I mean, I loved it. A lot of airbrush work, and you know, I mean, even growing up though, man, I can think back to, you know, you had a line of crotch rockets down the street. You know, you were doing like a bike a week. You know, after work for everybody.
Yeah, they were a blast.
And it was awesome seeing that, and the restorations and everything too. But to go full time with it, it's something that you pick up as you go, where you don't know it at first, but you know, you have to learn how to weed out those types of clients.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard, because when you open up and when you're fresh, I mean, the first 5 years, you're a yes man. You have to be.
Sure.
Because you gotta get work done, and people aren't gonna trust your work until they see stuff out there.
You gotta get your name out there.
You know, it takes a long time to get it out there. You know, and here we are. I mean, we're almost a decade into this. We're coming up on 9 years at this, and
we still come across a lot of people that are shocked that we do this full time.
Yeah.
A lot of people love cars, and everybody can tinker. And we've met some people who have done mind-blowing paint jobs in their garage at home, and they're like, oh, I don't even know the first thing about paint. I just looked it up online, and here's my car. And, but when they hear that we do this full time, it's shocking to me that it's shocking to them. Because like you said earlier, this is just so normal. And certainly there's tough days and tough months and tough weeks and whatever, but like you've said multiple times, it's never about the money. It's always just about, we love doing this, and it's just so normal now. Like I'm 28 and I couldn't imagine starting over another career, you know, like if this was to go away or I change my mind or something, I just, what do I do? I'm this far into it. Nick's 5 years older, he's 5 years further into it, but it's crazy how many people are like, what do you mean you only do that? You don't have another job? You're not in the union? Or
What's your day job? You're looking at it.
Yeah,
This is it.
I bought a house from this. I bought vehicles, and it's not like we're swimming in money, but we're passionate, and this is full time.
And you can make it whatever you want. I'm so proud of you guys because you've taken it so much further than I was able to. Because I am not a businessman. And I said that from the start when we opened the shop, back whatever that was. I just love fixing cars. And my downfall was just thinking, well, there was an old baseball movie that the guy was going to build a baseball stadium. He said, build it and they will come. That's the premise I worked under. And, you know, I had a decent following and everything, but I'm not a businessman. I'm not the P.T. Barnum. I'm not a self-promoting guy.
And even outside of that, I mean, it's something that, you know, now, taking it as far as we have now, you know, we're at the point where we can go places and everybody wants something done, no matter what. And, you know, whether we go somewhere and people know who we are or they don't, but we have a conversation with them when they find out what we do, you know, and we're not like car show celebrities or any of that stuff, but like, we've done a lot of work for a lot of people in this area. And so, you know, we walk around the cruise night, you know, you just got done going there with me. I can't go anywhere without talking to people because, you know, locally we know everybody. We've befriended everybody in the area.
That's the biggest thing, is just being personable and being able to make friends with them. Outside of the workload, it's just, we got so many clients and customers and people like the cruise nights and stuff. You'll see them and they'll make a comment about his dog or one of my cars or something. They're like, that guy's got a slow Nova, or watch out for that guy's dog, it's huge, it'll bite you. Like and that's the stuff that's awesome. That means way more than just building a car for someone.
I love being able to walk through and sit down and talk with some of these guys, you know, and today I get there with my car and I haven't done a thing to the car since that guy saw it last. And he noticed the car and came walking over, and I got out of it. He's like, "Oh, you still own this?" He's like, "Oh, you know what?" And then we, you know, get to talking, and he's showing me pictures of his car. I mean, it's, you know, I built a aluminum windshield frame for him at the old shop for his Bantam that he's building, and that was awesome, you know. And he's still working on that car, you know. But he's not he says he's not a professional. The guy takes his time. The guy's retired. And he's just building a car in his garage at his own pace. He won't work in the summer, it's too hot in the garage, so he works in the fall and in the winter. And he's showing me pictures of where the car's at now, and it looks awesome, you know. And then he takes me over and shows me his Model A that's the first car he painted in 1973. And, you know, the car's cracking, and it's got some issues with it now and stuff like that, but he hasn't done a thing to it since 1973.
It's awesome.
So
it's like a double survivor. Survived again.
Even, you know, going to World Wheels now with you guys and seeing some of them old cars, you know, 62 Corvette gas and probably painted in lacquer 30 years ago when the paint's checking and cracking. I'm like, that is the coolest.
Yeah, that's the coolest
thing.
That's the stuff that we enjoy and love the most about this. You know, if we were in this for the money, we had closed up the doors a long time ago. You know, because the first couple of years, it was nail biting. You know, and it's still got days when it gets like that. You know, and you know, we had the opportunity to take you over and you know, meet Troy and all the guys over at Rad Rides. And you know, obviously, I know we say all the time, they're at the top of the food chain for this, but they still run into similar problems and, you know, products that show up that they have issues with, or, you know, anything else. And that's the best of the best right there. And they still deal with the same headaches that every other shop in America deals with. And certainly they've got a much better clientele list than us, but that took, you know, 30 or more years to build that. And he built it on the premise of, you know, doing everything correctly and doing the absolute best you can for the budget the customer supplies you with. And you gotta take stuff that you don't wanna do early on no matter what, and it sucks. But you'll learn quickly, and some people learn quicker than others. It took me a long time to learn, but there are times, you know, you gotta start saying no to stuff, and you know, it gets harder and harder. But you start to get a feel for stuff. You know, everybody wants something done. You get to talking with them, and you know, not to knock anybody that doesn't have a big budget, but it's not even about a big budget. If the goal is larger than the budget that they have, then it's my job to educate them and say, I'm sorry, that just can't be done for what you're looking to spend. And I might still be interested in the job. So then it's like, okay, let's see what we can give you for your budget and give you the best possible option that we can. Or if you're not in a rush, let's do what we can with your budget. Go put it away. Save some money up again. We'll do a little bit more again.
Get a damn paper out.
Yeah, we did a C10 for a guy years ago, and he was retired, and he got a part-time job just to keep. It was more his interest. He's like, I can't stay away from the magazines and the catalogs. I just keep buying parts, and that truck snowballed it snowballed from like touching up a truck that he liked to just like nut and bolt restoration. And he was like, I can't wait to retire again. I'm so sick of this. He's like, man, this got out of hand. But we've built such a great relationship with that guy. He stops by just to say hi, whether he's in the truck or not. He'll just swing by and say, oh yeah, I was born today.
There's a block long burnout when it leaves every time. It's awesome.
I figured I'd leave the house for the first time in a month and came and seen you guys. It's like, oh, that's awesome.
And that's the cool relationships, you know, that come along. I always, when I had the shop, I liked doing cars that had a story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the second to last car I did was a '68 Firebird Sprint, which was a really cool car with the overhead cam, 6-cylinder and everything.
The DeLorean built.
Yeah.
Or design,
Yeah. So this guy, one of my former students, contacted me and said, my neighbor asked me if I would do this car, but he's like, it's way over my head. You know, the guy bought the car in 1970, and it was his daily driver, like anything else. And he got rear-ended pretty hard in it in 1978, and the car was never quite, you know, he had it fixed, insurance fixed it, and everything. It was never quite right, and it didn't last long. It wasn't long before the paint started flaking off or whatever. So he took the car apart in his garage, like suspension, subframe, motor out, had the motor and transfer built, like gutted. It was a bare shell. And he quickly realized that he had no idea how to put it back together. So
taking it apart's a lot easier.
Yeah, that's a lot easier. I tell the students bag and tag those parts because you never know how long it's going to be before you figure out where the hell this bolt goes, you know. So it sat in his garage for over 20 years, disassembled. And the guy asked my former student, hey, can you do this car, you know, and get it back together for me? Because he was dying of some disease that his dad died from at his age. And he was like, man, my bucket list is I want to drive this car again. You know, it was a 3-speed, you know, and everything. Cool, really cool car. Probably everybody threw the drivetrains away and put V8s in them, you know, at some point. This car was all original. Pearl white seats and everything. It was cool. So, so my student called me and said, would you be interested in talking to this guy? So I talked to him and told me his story and all that. He's like, I've been saving up, you know, for years, and just put money aside here and there as a retired cop from up here. And He's like, yeah, my wife doesn't even know that I was stashing this money, you know. And he's like, I don't know a lot, but I want to see what you would charge to put the car, you know, body, paint, put it back together. The engine had already been rebuilt. It was sitting on a pallet. So all that just needed to be put back in, but you know, new shocks and brakes and steering and all that. So I don't remember how much it was at that, you know, at this point, but I was like, I want to make this work for this guy.
Yeah.
You know,
You get emotionally invested
yeah.
into a lot of the projects,
Yeah.
and I feel like those are always the best ones.
Yeah. So, but from a making a living standpoint, you know, it was more of a hobby that I made a little bit of money at.
Yeah.
And it became to the point where I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I had to get out. And then the last car that broke Kim's back was a 67 Mustang. I won't bring any names into that. But this car had a story too. Evidently, it came from their dad's dealership. And was in the family, you know, forever. And needed to be redone. These people are millionaires. You know, they owned car dealerships and they were investors and all that kind of stuff. So they were like, they wanted the car done, but they had no idea what it would take.
Yep.
You know, they weren't even
And
watching the TV shows.
It's tough to even judge what it's going to take.
Well, yeah, they kind of wanted a price, and so I gave them a ballpark idea, and you know, I just kept finding more and more and more wrong with the car. You know, the Fords, they sludge up. You know, you take the valve covers off, and the sludge is the shape of the valve cover.
Yeah,
You know,
it's like a yellow mold.
Yeah, the engine was toast. You know, so it just became one thing after another. They nickel and dimed me to death on that car. And man, it just turned out so nice. And when it came down to where, you know, the Mustang script, that pop metal pits, it looks all nasty. They didn't want to spend. It wasn't even $100 to put engines on.
Put all of it, yeah.
You know, and I'm
You
like,
can get them from multiple sources.
and I said, well, I'm telling you right now, I ain't put my name on this car with that shit on there.
Yeah.
So I, you know, and there was more than just those items. I ate so much on that car because I know how that car needs to be.
Right.
I'm not going to let it go out the door less than perfect.
Well, and that's the tough part of this too, because nobody's going to ask you, and nobody's going to ask them what corners they had to cut,
Yeah.
or where they had to trim the budget,
Yeah.
or anything like that. They're going to look at that car and they're going to say, "Who did it?"
Yeah, that looks like shit.
Yeah.
You know, what the heck, you know?
Point and laugh. I'm not going there.
Yeah. So,
So it's always you always want to bring your A game, and bringing your A game means you got to find A game clients.
yeah, for sure. And
That takes so long to do that.
So that was the deal breaker for me. I'm like, I'm done with all this. You know, I love doing the car. I love how it turned out. They were stunned when I delivered that car to them. I mean, it really, just the body was just so arrow straight. It was red. Really turned out nice. I put interior in that car. We did a top, you know, and then all the mechanicals. Ended up putting rubber trans in it. Just got a crate motor and put it in there. But it was just like really, really nice car. And at that time, those were climbing a little bit. The Mustangs, it was a convertible. Everything's down. You know, who knows what it's worth right now? But they didn't spend a fourth of what it should have cost to do that car, but I didn't care, you know. But that's where I'm like, all right, I ain't doing this no more. I get too much into their, you know, their story, and I had a lot of them backfire on me like that.
Yeah. And I mean that's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
We still see so much of that here. You know, it's unfortunate. I mean, we just got done working on one and just turned it back to the client. You know, it was a kind of a similar situation. I mean, they spent a lot of money with it elsewhere, and then there's a lot of time in it, and you know, they just didn't feel like they really got what they paid for. And there were things that we did for them that it got damaged and things like that. You know, the car was gone, and so it came back, and he didn't damage it, neither so somebody had paid to do it, you know, so those things had to be corrected. And, you know, that car still has a laundry list of other things that are going on with it. And, you hate hearing that type of stuff. You know, I wish I could just work on everybody's stuff for free all the time, because you feel bad for people that, you know, they're taking advantage of in the industry, you know. And the problem with that is too, every time a shop takes somebody for a ride and hoses them on something, those people lose a lot of trust and a lot of faith in this industry. And then put a guard up. Yep. And it's harder and harder for the next guy to try to help them make things right, you know. And us, I mean, it's, you know, our intentions are always the best. And, you know, we're never out to screw anybody. You know, I mean, like we said, we were in this for the money, we closed it a long time ago. But, you know, you want to do the best you can to try to help these people, because, you know, for us, this is normal, doing this type of stuff, you know, and to realize that there are people that, you know, they have to rely on somebody like us to do a car like this. They've got a vision for it, they know what they want. And when they have, you know, there's so much time in it, the car's gone from them for so long, and they get it back from somewhere, and it's not what they wanted, or it's not right, or, you know, there's just whatever the situation is, they're not happy with it. Then they find us, and you hear that whole story, and they're hesitant to want to get back into that whole ordeal again, you know. And we've done well picking up the pieces of, you know, someone else's mess a lot. That's been like a big thing, keeps the doors open around here, is just making corrections on things. But every one of those jobs, it's the same exact thing. It's really hard to get the people to want to spend money again for something that they already spent money on somewhere else. And I don't blame them, you know. And sometimes it's because they don't have the money to spend again either.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, these people work as hard as they do to save this money, and they want to have a car done. And, you know, we've had conversations with multiple people, all in recent days, of situations just like that, and it's all over the industry. And it's just a shame, because, you know, you run into situations like that where the money's not there because they don't want to spend it, the money's not there because they don't have it, or, you know, they've been burned too many times elsewhere. And it's easy to take the wind out of your sails, you know, when that's what you end up seeing. But you get those wins, and somebody's happy with it, and they love it. And every time they take a car home and they're happy with it, it's like, you know, and even in all of those situations where we're playing cleanup for someone else, that car leaves, and people are happy because we've corrected as much as we can. And they're, you know, I don't, to me, I mean, that's just, it's awesome to see them happy and enjoying it. And, you know, whether it's something small or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say, the positive outcome, no matter the size, whether it's a full restoration or you just fab up a little bracket for something on the car, there's no better feeling than knowing that they have all these shops to choose from, all these places to go. They chose to come to us, whether they had a rough past with another place, or they're just learning, or it was their grandfather's car or something. They're like, oh, you know, could you make this bracket to hold my radio or whatever it is, something simple. And then when you go out and they're like, let me introduce you to these people. They totally fixed my car. They saved the day. You know, whether it's a full paint job or something simple. We recently made a lot of great connections and great friends with like older clients and people who have been in the industry for a while, and people who have spent a lot of money on their cars and weren't 100% satisfied. And we just made the smallest changes, pennies on the dollar. A couple things we just fixed and said, here you go. And they speak very highly of us, and that goes a long way. And it continues back to saying, you know, the money stuff. It's like, we'll just keep doing stuff for free, man. You guys are so cool. We'll just keep doing free stuff because we like you. But, you know, they're just such great people, and it's awesome.
There are a lot of was like that 68 Firebird. I did get it back to the guy, and while I was working on the car, it took me about 10 months to do the car. And I said, "Don't you go dying on me." I said, "I don't want this car." You know, his wife didn't know anything about it, you know, and he was even getting the car down. So, you know,
That's
where
all.
the title was or anything. I didn't want it.
That's all another can of worms too. We've had clients pass while we're working on vehicles, and it's tough. And for us, I mean, we really do build a good relationship with pretty much everybody that comes through the door. We have a great relationship with them. We weren't doing any crazy work to the vehicle, but it was cool because it was, you know, what he was able to buy and find and afford at the time, and you know, it was a cool little truck, you know, and we were working on it, and he had told me to hold off for a little bit at one point, so I brought up the truck for just a little bit, and he was working on getting some money together to finish up the last couple of things and get it done. And I didn't know the extent of what was going on with him. And then I don't know, man, I was friends with a guy on Facebook, you know, and we spoke pretty regularly, every other week at least. You know, so, even if he had us waiting, you know, for him to come and put money to do more, there were times he'd just call me up, you know, somewhere around lunchtime and just talk for a little bit and be like, "Hey, you know, what are you guys working on? How's things going?" You know, just checking on the shop. And we still have a ton of clients that do that, but you know, for him, he asking about things, and you know, then I don't know, I hadn't heard from him for a couple of weeks, and I tried calling him, his phone didn't go through, and then, you know, of course you get on Facebook and you see all the rest in peace posts and stuff like that, and eventually his daughter had reached out to us, you know, after going through his estate and, you know, finding things and whatever, and there was documentation that, you know, like receipts and things from us that we had the truck, and you know, so she reached out to us, and you know, her request of the truck was, you know, can I drive it to Grand Canyon to take a road trip with Dad, you know, one more time. She was going to take his arm and everything, and it wasn't reliable enough for that, you know. And I said, "Well, we could make it reliable enough for that."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, I don't, you know, I don't really have money for that." And she's like, "Dad's always been into these cars and everything." And she's like, "I just think it's a senseless hobby," you know. So
I remember one conversation you and him had, and you came to the shop. I don't know if it was in person or on the phone, but you like reported back to us. You said, "Man, this guy is just like a saint." You said, "We had a conversation, and at the end of it, he like took a moment and said, you know, you're really making an old man happy, man. Like you're giving me someone to talk to." And he's like, you're giving an old man some light," or he said something like that. And I remember that one hit deep. I was like, man, it's awesome to be good to these people.
yeah, and that's the type of stuff that we chase now, is the good relationships with the clients. You know, I want to be able to go sit at the cruise night and hang out with these people and have conversations with them about cars or whatever else they're interested in, you know. And I mean, you came into town for World of Wheels, and we got to see a lot of that, and you met quite a few of our clients that were there with us and hanging out, and they're great people.
Yeah. The cool thing about that, like going to the World of Wheels, I still think about it every day because it's a blast. And how many years have we been going to that? And it's just
Long time.
Long time. It's just been an awesome experience. But having you guys now, you know, at the age you are, and you're in the business.
Yeah, we're kind of running our own path rather than following Dad around talking to his friends.
Right.
You know, you're kind of, it's like a full circle moment.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the World of Wheels, we're seeing your clients and people that you know.
Yeah.
And I'm running into
People that you
people
know
from my
your-
day,
Yeah.
you know, that still are going. And like I said, seeing them old cars, you know, still being shown and used, and some of them still race them, and you know, stuff like that. So it's pretty cool how this has all evolved for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, now your daughter just turned 1, and she already can't
Loves
stand
cars.
not having a steering wheel.
Yeah, anything with a steering wheel.
I asked him, I said, "Do you think that's genetic?" Or, you know, I know like at the parks they got the steering wheels and stuff. It's kind of a natural thing to just reach and grab, but I was like, you think that's genetic with her? Because she's an enthusiast, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And she gets mad when you don't let her sit in the car and steer.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's off to a good start.
Yeah.
It's cool that she's gonna see and learn a lot of things without you even teaching her. She's gonna pick up on what Dad's doing, and she's gonna see and try it herself or whatever. You'll get her first bicycle and she'll tear it apart like we did.
Yeah.
You know, I tell the story a lot. These days I'm heavier into the fabrication stuff than the body and paint side of things. Not that I'm incapable of body and paint, but I've tried to just excel in the metal stuff. And I think back to watching you weld in the garage, and you were building a bird cage. We had the 2 birds when we were young, and you were like, "Oh, a bird cage is, $5,000. I'll just build one from scratch." So yeah, I'm like, "What do you mean you're gonna build one from scratch?" We were really young, and I remember you got the materials, like some 3/4 square tubing or 1/2 inch square tubing or something, and some little 1/4 solid rod. You started framing it out, and you built a hinge door and the uprights and everything. And watching you cut and assemble it was awesome, but my little mind could not understand what it was that a welder does. I remember watching you stick a piece to, you have a floating piece here and a floating piece here, and you hold them together, and you just put the gun up to it, and then it doesn't fall to the ground anymore. I'm like, what is going on here? And you're like, yeah, it's, you're like, don't look at it, but this is what's happening. And I just couldn't understand it. And then I remember piece by piece watching this bird cage get built from scratch. And at the time, it's not like I was watching going, I'm going to build bird cages one day.
Yeah.
But just like Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And I've always been fascinated with building things from scratch and challenging myself and trying to learn a new thing or whatever it is. And I seriously, like, almost on a daily basis, I'll be building something and I doubt myself, or I'm trying to figure out what I should do next. The hardest part is coming up with these things from outer space in your head. You're just like, oh, this would look good, but what if this looked better? But all the time I think about that bird cage, like almost daily. I'm like, man, my dad was just whipping up a bird cage, and here I am building suspension from scratch for a truck.
To you.
It's crazy.
Once you, I don't know, it's like a mindset, I guess. Once you like become handy, like have the creativity and the ability to get what's in your head to your hands and create something, that's what I try to pass on to my students, the passion for it is kind of infectious, and I tell them, once you get good at figuring things out, because that's really what it is, figuring out how the process works and how to perfect things and reach the goal you're trying to get at, you can do anything. I tell them all the time, the neighborhood I live in, people be like, I had to get a kitchen faucet put in, it cost me $1,200, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't know how to change a faucet?
Yeah.
Might be going in the faucet business.
I talk about that all the time too, back when you had the house up here, fixing the pool filter. I remember there was a big thing where the pool filter was shot, something in the system was not working, and you had people telling you, oh, just go here, this is the best guy, I got the best pool guy. And I know you were a little worked up and trying to figure out what route you were going to go, but you fixed the whole assembly. You just rebuilt the whole thing. And growing up seeing that, it's just so normal. You built that shed from scratch, you poured the concrete, you framed the thing out. Like,
I never believed in paying what people get.
And that's definitely something I've admired and worked towards my whole life now. And being a homeowner now, I've called you a couple different times telling you issues.
Sure.
We had minor stuff at the house, whatever. But it's all stuff that, we could have called somebody and spent a small fortune for them to come out and, hyperinflate telling me what it was, or not be able to figure it out. I still got to pay their service call, whatever.
like my gas company guy.
Yeah.
Overly informative.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had, you know, I don't know, we had a sump pump issue, and I had the one dishwasher drain issue one time, and you know, it's all just stuff. When you understand how things work together, it just, you can figure anything out, and that's something that that's the biggest thing that I'm thankful that I've been able to pick up on is looking at something and being able to understand how it all works.
Yeah.
You know, the pool is a great example. You know, we got a beautiful pool at home, but it's still got pool problems. And I've had the issues with it. I mean, the pump quit on us last year, and you know, I'm calling around. I found one, and I go get it, and you know, I get there to buy this thing, and I'm like, okay, well, who do you have installing this? Well, I'm going to change it. Well, you know, we don't really advise that because you know there's some moving parts and blah 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 blah. And we can schedule one of our technicians. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to, you know, build a car from scratch, ground up, bunch of parts on the ground. Like this, it's just a pool filter, buddy. We'll get this handled.
Right, everything's made by someone.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you can figure it out.
6 bolts and a couple of wires, and you know, boom, and he's working great this year still. So it's something right. But
When we were in Florida a few years ago, we had a Christmas party with all of our neighbors. We had a bunch of our neighbors over, and you know, Christmas it's still 85 degrees where we were at, and once you know, the morning of the party, the air conditioner quit. Well, there's not a lot of things, you know, that it could be, and the way it was acting, it just wouldn't. It would kick on, but it wouldn't. The motor wouldn't kick off. So I'm thinking it's got to be the capacitor, you know, the flux capacitor.
Yeah, naturally.
So I didn't know if that's what it was, but I went and got one and put it in, and boom, it was fixed, you know. So we're having dinner, and everybody in Bridge is telling them, yeah, this almost would have been a bad situation because the air conditioner went out this morning, and they were, you know, the neighbors were like, well, how the heck did you get somebody out here so fast? And I said, I didn't. I put a capacitor in it, it just worked, and it worked. And they were like, well, how'd you know to do that? Because I seen my dad do it when I was a kid, you know. And I remembered, and luckily that's what it was, you know.
And honestly, nowadays, if you can't figure out how to handle stuff like that at home on your own, there's a lot of times when you're going to be in trouble. I mean, we had you know, our house is a septic system, and I had that one time.
All the toilets filled.
We had a toilet handle hang up.
Yeah.
And it filled the whole system.
Wow.
And it plugged up the line, you know, leaving the house to the tank. And yeah, I shut the water off to the house first because I didn't know what was going on, and figured out what it was. Okay, so now we're fine, but I gotta get the water out of the system. I mean, it's pushing out around all the wax rings and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, there was like 3 inches of water on the floor of like the whole bathroom.
Shears full.
The garage bathroom at the very far end of the whole system. I mean, that bathroom was trickling water out into the garage.
Wow.
So
Yeah, it was a big deal.
it was nuts. And I'm like, I mean, it looked a lot worse than it was. So I start calling around to some plumbers and stuff, you know, and ask them, hey, you know, you got a router, can you do this and you do that, whatever. I think it's just plugged up, but can we rod this and try to get this opened up? I'm like, well, you know, it'd be an emergency charge right now, but we don't have anybody available for, you know, it'd be like 8 hours before they get somebody to the house. You know, call another plumber, and they're like, well, where's it at? And I said, well, all the, you know, the clean out is, it's under the house. And they're like, well, you got a basement? Well, we got a crawl space. I'm not going in an effing crawl space. Guess what? I'm gonna fix this one myself.
Yeah.
So I said, you can't just lift the closest toilet to the exit and, you know, sort that problem out. So I did, bought my own router and we lift the closest toilet to the tank and clear it out. All of a sudden you hear the house take a deep breath and everything goes. And haven't had a problem since because, you know, now we know to make sure those handles don't get better. But it's just stuff like that. Like if I had to wait on somebody and then to call somebody and they're saying, like, that's your job. You do that for a living. I don't.
Yeah.
And I call you and you say, well, I'm not going in a crawl space. Oh, okay. Well, I guess you don't need to work.
They got it
So
like that.
I'll just,
You could tell that he's a seasoned homeowner too, because I'm only a year into this and I call him about 16 times an hour. I'm like, what do I do? My furnace quit working and I was trying to Google things and asking, trying to get a census from multiple people. And it was like -50 and my house was like -60. So I'm like, this ain't gonna work. And I'm like, I need heat right now. I need heat. I got dogs. And you know, and Nick's like, from the start, he's like, just clean your flame sensor. I'm like, no, this is a bigger deal than that.
It's a good thing he checked with his friend though.
Yeah, my other friend said, it's probably your flame sensor. And then Google said, oh, it's probably this. It's all these different things. And I was mad all day at work. And Nick's like, just go home and clean your flame sensor. He's like, and then tell me if you're still mad. So I had to go, my furnace is up in the attic. So it's like the cartoons. I'm like, oh, I'm going up into the cold attic and I'm gonna see what I got and bring a headlamp. And I go and get to the furnace and I pull the thing apart and I'm like, this flame sensor's not dirty. And Nick told me to use a $1 bill because it's the right grit. Take the flame sensor out, clean it. I got Haley downstairs. The house is so insulated and she's so far away that you can't hear nothing. So I'm screaming, Haley, try that, turn it on. She's like, try it. Put the thing back in, kicks on, and it works. And I told Nick, hey, that was the flame sensor. He's like, well, good thing you asked a friend and not me. But yeah, I had a septic issue too, not to just ramble about house issues, but had people over from out of town, so there was a higher volume at the house. And I'm thinking that's all it was, but the septic backed up and the toilet was at max capacity, it wouldn't flush, and the shower, it was filling the shower. The shower floor had water in it, and there was just nowhere for it to go. And I freaked out. I'm like, man, septic. This is $20,000. You know, what am I gonna do? And I tried to plunge till my arms were gonna fall off, and tried to just get something to take the water away. And I ended up getting a rodder and I rodded for like 2 hours and I had Nick come over and we were both rodding and plumbing and listening to the tank out in the yard trying to hear some glugging or whatever. And it slowly trickled down, but it would be like, all right, try to flush it. And then you'd flush it and it would just be, it'd be full again. And I'm like, all right, I think we might actually have to like see what's going on here. And then it trickled its way down that day. It never just went boom and went, but it trickled down, it was done, and then it's been a year and a half, so it's like, you know, a little over a year, but we fixed it, I guess, you know, just take a deep breath and work on it and get it done.
Yeah, like the shed, I'm not the kind of person to call someone in and say, hey, I want you to build me a shed, but I don't want to pay $6,000. Can you do it for $2,500? I hate that kind of guy. I want the damn thing myself.
Yeah. And I'm notorious for that too. If I call somebody to have them do something and they give me a price on it, I'm not going to haggle. If I can't afford it, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And if I can, then I will. And then I'm also usually not the type to nitpick anything after I get something back. I've had a lot of situations where, you know, we get somebody that they want a deal and they want something cheaper, and you have to figure out a way to deliver on the cheaper cost, right? So usually that means materials are gonna have to be cheaper or something, because you can only donate so much time as it is. So you get it done and then, you know, they nitpick everything. There's always people that ask for a deal that wanna nitpick something. And it amazes me. And then, you know, you get places that just absolutely hose somebody and they pay it.
Nitpicking though is one thing. The people do more than nitpick. They nitpick and badmouth.
Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of clients with a, not even to say higher budget, but just more of an understanding that building a car, painting a car, whatever, is a very open-ended thing, and there's variables in it. And they'll be nitpicky, but they're like, hey, is it cool if we try to figure out a better way, or, you know, there's a little smudge here, can we try to buff it, or, you know, whatever it is, rather than you wake up and see a Facebook post and you're like, well, I guess I'm an asshole. You know? It's a lot easier to just have a conversation. We're all human.
Yeah.
People's orders get messed up at McDonald's multiple times a day, and they still go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
So it's I just don't understand the stigma of, you know, those car guys are just jerks. Even people who have, you know, like you said, a shed, like a pole barn, have a pole barn built at home or something. Nobody's an expert. You pay $70,000 to get a building done at your house, and you don't even know that you have a leaking roof and your gutter isn't secured properly. It's screwed in only every so often or whatever. And I doubt that the construction, the contractor gets the call, you know, saying, "Oh, this is messed up." They just, at some point maybe they will, but with
People
the
are
cars,
so
it's just
quick to bash somebody for a mistake and not talk about it, you know, and that's something that we've also been very good about, and we try to communicate with the customers as much as possible and let them know every step of the way. We got a car here right now that turned into a way bigger deal than it needed to be, and it's not my problem and it's not his problem. You know, this is what they wanted, and it's a lot more involved than it initially was going to be. And you know, now you get to the point where now we're, you know, narrowing a rear axle, and you know, you're potentially mini tubbing the car, and you know, things like that, and it snowballs quickly. But letting them know this is where we're at, this is what it needs to be, like, and present the problem to them, and then giving them multiple solution choices for them to figure out and see what they want to do. And you know, that works so much better too, because it's, you know, I mean, we're not going to cut any corners in any of this. So it's, you know, either you want to do it right, or this thing can leave on a roll for all I care, because I don't, you know, I'm way past the point of just making something work to make somebody happy. I want to do it right.
And we also have a lot more like almost sympathy and just professionalism, because you hear a lot of shops where like they do it at a lot of dealerships and stuff, but you go in, just a basic example, you go in to get brakes done, and you're like, you know, because everybody's got a budget for everything, for groceries and everything, so if someone has been putting their brakes off for 3 months because they're trying to save that $400 or whatever it's going to be, take the car in to get the brakes done, and they pick it up and their bill's $750, and they're like, "What's this? I just needed the brakes done." And the shop's like, "Well, it needed a cabin filter, and it needed this, and it needed that, and it's not leaving without it," and no exceptions, you know. And you hear that in the custom world too. They're like, they just tack things onto the bill and surprise the customer with it. And maybe that's why those guys are wealthier, you know, but the communication factor is just a huge deal. So just a phone call, a conversation, whatever, it's worth a lot more than just being the asshole guy that's got a lot of money because he's by the book about everything, you know. Pick the car up and pay your bill, no exceptions, and that, it is what it is.
No, we're pretty good about being sympathetic of that, and communication is what helps with that, though. You know, if you're running out of money, call us and tell us. We're not gonna put it on a marquee sign out front and say, "Hey, this person's broke, they finished their car." You know, we'll figure something out. It can go home, or it can go to storage, and you know, it can wait, and you know, it's not gonna hurt my feelings if they run out of money. You know, it is what it is, and that happens all the time. So, and obviously, you know, everybody wants a win every time, but it's not always the case. But you know, just do the absolute best work you possibly can, and if the worst thing somebody has to say about us is that it took too long, I'm gonna sleep just fine at night.
That's a good
Good
thing to be.
As long as it's right.
Yeah.
I tell my students, I don't put any time restraints on anything we do. You know, straightening a dent or, you know, whatever. Just make sure you get it perfect. And the more you do it, you'll get faster at it. But make it perfect. You know, have that attention to detail. You know.
Yeah, it's if someone has to wait a little bit to get their car back, but they could jump in and just drive it wherever. That's way better than getting it back 3 days later and having to bring it here twice a month to get adjusted or
Yeah,
whatever.
and that spends more time here, getting something corrected than out and about.
Yeah.
So,
Which will still happen after the long time. And anything could happen. You could buy a brand new Honda Accord and it'll break down the next day. But
and any of the ground up stuff, we try to put some mileage on them before they leave and make sure things are correct.
Yeah.
And there's always something, you get a phone call when the car's, there's a blinker that's out or
It's a mechanical
something.
thing.
But you want to make sure that everything is safe and functions the way that it's supposed to, and you give it back to the client and then let them know. I mean, it's no different than the right way to go about it for a shop that does lift kits on trucks. They tell you put 500 miles on it, bring it back so we can re-torque everything.
Yeah.
And so we encourage that. If you're going to take the car out, after we're done driving it, we're going to check everything over, but bring the car back after so many miles so that we can look this thing over again and make sure everything's right, nothing's rubbing, everything's still tight, everything's working correctly. Don't call me at midnight telling me that your dome light doesn't work, screaming at me. Put it on a list and make a list of issues as they do arise, because you're driving a brand new car that probably still has issues. It's been to the dealership 4 times for warranty work, but you're not screaming at them.
yeah, if you got a call at midnight, it better be because your wheel fell off or something.
Yeah. So, but that's it, communication.
Yeah.
It boils down to a ton of that. So,
Yeah, we definitely owe it all to you. We've learned a lot. Whether
it's your fault.
whether you feel like you directly taught us or we just caught on, it was all thanks to you. And then naturally, when you're into something, you swarm to those people. So if we didn't have you and Mom were both car enthusiasts. So if we didn't have that in our heads, then we would have made friends with the guys who play a lot of video games and stuff, and we wouldn't have known what path to narrow down.
Sure. I could have been a refrigerator repairman if you guys all would have been
Yeah.
a Maytag man.
Yeah, we tried to translate or something. It's really crazy how that works. And I even tried to dodge the automotive stuff. I went to normal school down in Florida, went to college. I was like, not that I was like rebelling or anything, but I was gonna go for mechanical engineering. That was my plan. Kind of had money in mind, so that was like the goal. It's like, oh, mechanical engineers make a ton of money, So I started aiming for that, and then changed my mind to just business management, and still was just like, you know what? I don't think school is worth it, really. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And then all the dead time of being in school and being so broke and everything, it's like you're trying so hard to just make enough money to get ramen noodles at the same time as trying to study, but you're so stressed out because it's like, man, what am I going to do when I have $0 and I need gas to just get to school? It's kind of a goofy system, but I ended up getting out of school and getting back into doing cars and stuff, and I was painting bumpers and mirrors and stuff for friends, and then
Matching stuff.
yeah, quick little jobs like that.
Paint those tumblers.
Yeah, a lot of Yeti cups, yeah. And then that's when Nick told me, you're needed up here. So I came back, and we'll get into that. I'll do another one with you. We'll tell that story. Yeah, it's crazy. I tried to venture away.
When you first came back, it was one of those deals where it was helping me out for a little bit. That was at the time when it was just me, and this was growing at a pretty rapid rate, and I couldn't keep up. And Kyle came back home to help, and it was just like an in-between thing, because he'd been around it so long. It's like, all right, well, I'll do this for a little bit. It just never left. And he's got a shirt with his name on it. They spelled it wrong.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. No, I spent a lot of years thinking about chasing the money, and I if I could pass something down to people that are interested in cars or any passion that you have in life, if you chase the money, you'll be disappointed. You got to chase the passion, and you got to chase something where you could just get hit in the face with a brick time after time after time, and still want to do the same thing every day.
I mean, there's I listen to a lot of different podcasts and stuff. You know, there's some successful business people that I listen to and things like that. And one of the things that is constant through for Sellers podcast is be so undeniably great at what you do
That the money just comes on its own.
the money's a byproduct of producing. So if you're so undeniably good at what you do, they have to have you there. You're needed in what you're doing. You're going to make money. But if you go into something to try to make money, and he says that a lot, if you're into it just for the money never usually comes. You might do okay for a little bit, and it's not a sustainable, you know.
And there's almost like an algorithm to it too. Like if the money's up, the happiness, you know, it's like a dyno sheet. The money goes up, the happiness goes up with it. The money stays up. Usually, maybe the happiness comes down because of the amount of work that it takes to try to keep this image or keep, you know, your mortgage is $5,000 a month. So you're like, I gotta keep working this, you know, this many hours. Well, I know not a lot, but a few guys I know that have like 6,000-7,000 square foot houses or whatever. I remember we had a conversation with a guy in Miami about it, and he was telling us, yeah, I got this old house. It's a vintage house, and it's like 6,000 square feet or whatever. He's like, it's super cool. There was some history fact with it, like, oh, so and so lived here for 3 years or whatever it was, and I was like, God.
Al Capone's mom.
Yeah, and I was like, God damn, dude, you got a mansion. I'm like, what do you do? We knew what he did for a living, but I'm like, I need to go into that profession. And he like shut me down. He goes, don't ever chase the pot of gold. He's like, my house is cool, but it's just a house. He's like, things worked out and I ended up with it, but he's like, I wasn't just sitting around going, I need this house, I need this house, I need this house, I need this one. You know, he's like, don't think like that. He like shut me down right away. He's like, don't talk about
And setting goals for yourself, you know, some material goals, there's nothing wrong with that because it really motivates you to get something done. You know, you want a car, you know, you're gonna work for it. Or you get a hold of that shit box that needs a bunch of stuff, but you know what you want it to be. In our case, that's kind of everything by, you know, kind of comes in on a rollback. And then, you know, it's time more than anything. You know, he's pretty good about finding deals on parts and, you know, things like that. So
I'm also good at finding how many lights cars have on the dash, like actual spaces.
make sure they all work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotta go for.
Yeah.
That's a big. I like everything to work,
I'm
including all the dash lights.
Yeah, well, I put in your car, they're not all on yet. We need to snip some 2 cents.
Yeah.
A few more lights.
So when you turn the key on, initially there's a couple extras
Yeah,
to turn off. And then
I'm gonna need some more consistency there.
Yeah.
I need those to stay fully functioning.
Dakota, I think you got every one of them.
They're all those.
I'm actually thinking about going to the Dashlight Nationals next year.
Awesome.
I'm gonna see if I can be a contender for the finals. That one's gotta go.
So I'm super proud of you guys, you know, and I love what you're doing with your daughter. She's obviously in life, and it's inevitable that she's going to be a gearhead too.
When she plays softball, I'm gonna be a softball player. That's
Yeah,
fine.
absolutely. Yeah,
That's what you need to do. I'm gonna pull up there and pull a car.
yeah, right. Yeah. But yeah, it's the whole, you know, just the whole way of doing things. I mean, my dad, I have a brother and a sister, obviously, and we all built our first cars with my dad. You know, mine was the 57 Chevy. Awesome car. You know. My brother's was a 69 Camaro, and my sister's was a 69 Camaro. And, you know, we all had skin in the game. You know, nothing was like, oh, what do you want to do, BMW? You know, Wasn't like that.
But you started with a roach
Yeah,
and had to work to turn it into something. But that's all it was just time.
it was time,
Yeah.
you know, and it got you to see what goes into it. You know,
Yeah.
We all
When
work
you
on
learn the importance of what went into taking that car and making it what it wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, that's why I wanted to, we did your first cars, you know, together.
Yeah.
And I like that I still get to help you guys with things,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, very thankful for that. Thankful for you wanting to do it, and just thankful to still have the opportunity to have so much time with our dad, because a lot of people aren't that fortunate.
Yeah, just glad I can make my difference.
Yeah, we were, and now with, some of the cars were buttoning up and things like that. There's shows on the horizon, maybe this year, definitely next year. It's good that you're gonna have some free time on your schedule because you're gonna be traveling a lot.
Yeah.
You're gonna count all these shows and listen, start doing some of that. I think next year we need to do a road tour for sure. Maybe a hot rod power tour or something. We've already had a few people that they didn't make it this year either, and we didn't go. And, there's a handful of people that said they want to do it next year, and we'll see if they're still singing the same tune as we get closer. But my goal is to have, one of my cars ready to go for that. He's on the right on the brink of having one ready pretty soon too. So I think it's an experience that we've talked about that forever, and I think there's no better time than now. We're living in the good old days.
Yeah, and that's, I wanted to touch on that earlier too, not to ramble again, but the mentality of like, when I get to this point, I'll be happy. Whether it's as soon as I get this much money in the bank, then I'll be happy. As soon as my car's paid off, then I'll be happy. As soon as I get the inside walls of my house painted, then I'll be happy. I struggle with that a lot because I always want to do better. I'm very hard on myself. Nick is too. And before you know it, I'm 28 already, and it's like there's so many things that I should have just enjoyed more rather than saying, oh man, I don't have this yet, I don't have that yet, I'm still trying to get this, or only 2 more years until I have that, or it's easy to get wrapped up into almost a little circle of negativity of like not having enough, not doing enough, and obviously there's people with way worse scenarios, so always thankful to be where we are now, but being able to afford to eat and everything is just a blessing in itself. But first world problem, it's like, oh man, my barn doesn't look pretty. I'm not happy, and as soon as I get the barn completely reskinned, then I'll be happy. Like I'm done living like that. I'm trying to enjoy every day, and you do have to constantly remind yourself that, because it's like human nature to want to keep being better and doing the right thing, but it's important to live in the now. And like we talk about all these plans, we've talked about wanting to do certain shows or events multiple years in a row, and we don't, and it's like, oh, we got next year, and we should, but it's like, we worked that weekend instead of going to whatever show, and it's like, oh man, do I still have the $300 in my pocket that I probably made that weekend? No. It's like, let's just go enjoy ourselves. The money will be there, the cars and the customers will be there. We do this because the customers enjoy going to car shows and stuff. So it's understanding that we enjoy going to car shows. So it's,
And we're starting to gain some clients that are excited to want to go to these events. So that kind of helps. It makes it more enjoyable when they want to go as well, and they want to hang out and be at those shows. But even at the very least, even tonight, we're a sponsor, one of the many sponsors of the local cruise night here. And I wasn't gonna go at first. I'll go. But, we sponsored it. We had one summer where we went to like 2 of them. We didn't make it out there because we just kept working every Tuesday that it was going on. It's only 2 Tuesdays a month. it's only for a short period of time. Our cruising season's so short here, you know, I mean, before we know it, we're gonna be knee deep in snow again, and it's gonna be just too cold to do anything. And so like, no, I'll just go, you know, and then like, I'll just park in the other parking lot across from the tracks and walk over there and check it out. And I'm like, no, you know what? Screw that. I'll go get my car out and go, you know, and just park it and enjoy it. And look at that, you know, there's one of the last 3 cars in the parking lot tonight. So it's,
That's how it is with you though. They're at World of Wheels. They're like, hey buddy, we gotta turn the lights off. We gotta get out. The parking lot's right over there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, one more thing.
Yeah, it's been nice to get, you know, because, you know, I've been away from car shows and all that for so long. Just, like you said, just being busy, just doing so many other things. But it's been nice getting back into that. I'm looking forward to having my car done, which hopefully in the next couple of years I'd like to get into the World of Wheels and kind of get back into the whole,
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
whole thing.
That'd be a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Get you back there. Maybe one day I'll bring something again. Bringing my truck there was cool years ago, and the older I get, the less I enjoy spray waxing a car every 5 seconds. I like to just jump in something and go. Maybe I'll build a show car or something at some point. But it's a lot of work.
it is,
But the experience is cool, and you can bring anything to World of Wheels for the most part. So that's cool on its own. But it'd be cool to do a heavy hitter car at some point.
we got a few that could be, that's for sure.
So what time with that?
I know I probably haven't scratched the surface on, you know, things, you know, that kind of brought me to where I am. But the important thing is that, or the important thing that I've realized is that all the people that you meet along the way and the experiences that you have and mentors, you know, that come and go and whatever make you who you are, you know, it all adds up to who you are and what you know and all that. So super proud of you guys because you're way far into the process, like farther than I was able to get because I'm not, you know, I couldn't hold out any longer. You know, you got to make a living. You
Yeah.
have to live, you know. And for me, it just, I'm so glad to be not doing customer cars anymore. I just, teaching is awesome. I'll pass it on, let them deal with the headaches now. You know? I built a car for me. I'll never build a customer car again. You know, I like tinkering with stuff. You know, pinstriping Ella's car and you know, painting your truck and whatever. I love that because it keeps me doing what I like to do. But you know, I used to be pretty patient. I don't have the patience for customers.
Yeah, now you don't want to get yelled at.
You know, I don't want to do
it's definitely got it's got its list of headaches, and
Yeah.
you know, you got to get really good at wearing a lot of hats.
for sure.
So, but the big thing is, and a lot of like what Kyle just said too, you know, I've been so caught up in wearing all the hats here that I've forgotten or strayed away from enjoying why we got into this from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I got into this because I love it.
Yeah.
And you know, this year we've really worked to enjoy every day here at work. You know, it's been a big part of it, and you know, it's just better time management on my end for, you know, making sure that I'm getting, you know, whatever work done that I can, and then still making sure that I'm getting the billing done, and you know, answering customer phone calls and ordering parts and you know, stuff like that. And he's pretty good for saying, hey, did you order that? You said you were going to order that 3 days ago. Did you order it? Did you order it? You know, and eventually I get it ordered. But enjoying what we're doing and keeping that fire lit for why we're doing what we're doing here, and enjoying this as much as getting out to the shows and the cruise nights, and you know, even just getting in the cars and just going somewhere. That's a huge part of it. You know, you gotta keep the passion for it just as, you know, as hot as the, you know, the drive to get the work done.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy it.
And you gotta look at it as a blessing too. You can't, there's really no like reason for us to be here. It's a luxurious thing. There's
What
no,
we do is not important.
there's no necessity.
Not at all.
So the fact that we do it full time and the fact that we have built the relationships and all that is just unbelievably awesome to even think about. And we've been at it, like Nick said, almost a decade, and we're nowhere close to the 30, 40 year guys, you know, the shops that have been around forever, and we're nowhere close to the guys who are doing mass production stuff, the big names, companies in the industry. But there's been a lot of shops that have come and gone since we've been at it, and we pat each other on the back because we might do a lot of things wrong, but we're doing something right because we've been doing it a bit, and we don't give each other enough credit. I mean, it's really easy to look at all the bad and just be like, oh, we need to do better, this car's been here too long, we need to do this, we need to do that, whatever. But we need to just take a breath and say, man, we're doing it. This is our dream.
Yeah.
We're here, we're doing it.
Be thankful and proud of the fact that we've got a pretty big facility and it's full of cars.
Yeah.
And we've got a storage building and it's full of cars. A lot of them are our own, but there's no shortage of work around here, and we're right where I wanted to be when I started this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the better you get, the bigger you get, and the more you accomplish in anything, the bigger the headache gets as well, and the more headaches you have to deal with. And you know, there is no getting to any certain level where all of a sudden it just gets easy. I think that no matter how big you get, it continues to get harder.
Yeah.
It's just that you learn how to handle all that other shit that got you there. That stuff just gets easier to organize. It's just what the challenges continue to grow, and I think when the challenges stop, that's when you need to get out of it, because there's no, if you're not challenging yourself, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So when you run into challenges and you push the boundaries and the limits of what you're able to do, it's good. And I mean, him with his fabrication skills have just, in the last 6 months, the last year, the last couple of years, I mean, you know, as you start shortening that timeline and looking, I mean, he just gets better and better, and it's just unbelievable, you know. And I've been a good painter for a long time, and I enjoy painting, and I'm a pretty good fabricator. You know, I can do everything that we do here, but he's a better fabricator than me, there's no question about it. And to have somebody on the payroll, they should be better than me. Mm-hmm. And he's done just that. Yeah. And you know, there's times now when, not that I can't do it sometimes, but there's times when it's easier to just say, Kyle, here, can you weld this up? Mm-hmm. Because he's gonna get it done right the first time. He's not gonna have any issues with it. He knows exactly what he's doing. And I mean, that's his forte. Yeah. You know, and for me, I enjoy the paint. And you know, so I have been spending more time in the booth. And now, you know, the custom side of things, and you know, I mean, I sent you over pictures when I started leafing. You know, it's a recent thing for me. I want to leaf everything now.
Yeah. Leaf Erickson.
Yeah. I want to gold leaf everything I can get it to stick to, just because it's fun. You know, when I'm starting to push myself into the custom paint stuff more and more, because it's enjoyable, and that's one of those things that's helped me reignite that flame for making sure I'm doing this for the right reason, and that's because I enjoy it. You know, and I've had good conversations with a lot of people on that. You know, Heath was one of the ones we were just talking about that too, and it's, you know, think about why you opened up the day you opened up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What made you do that? Yeah. Do that today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Yeah, and looking back too, I think Nick said he's right where he thought he would be and where he wanted to be, and well, I'm where I wanted us to be. There was no timeline on it, but like looking back at when we opened, like this is what I dreamt of is what we're doing right now. And like, I've got dreams and goals and key aspirations for where I want things to go from here.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, you connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah, that's the only way to do it.
This is where I wanted it.
If you set yourself, it's good to have goals and plans and things to look forward to, but if you're just completely locked in on one thing, you'll be disappointed. It's just nature. But I look back, as you grow, as you age, people change, you lose friends, you make friends, people screw you over, whatever. You change as you go with the ages and the times a little bit, but I'm literally the same person I was when I was like 12 years old. I was taking bikes apart, spray painting my bike. I was the one painting my friends' bikes. They were bringing their bikes to me to fix them. You know, it's just crazy that, you know, that all just translates into the real world. And I saw something, it's pretty common in the car world, but BMX and skateboarding was stepping stones into this, and that was true for both of us. And I saw something that said, it was like, hey, car builder, what kind of bike did you ride back in the day or something? You know, it was like a given that's just what it is, and it all goes back to our interests at early ages. And I played ball sports, don't get me wrong, I played a lot of ball sports, and I had a lot of success in ball sports, and I was proud of the ball sports that I played, but those are kind of just temporary things that keep you busy. And like if I went to baseball practice every day and I said, I'm going to be in the MLB, every single day, I'm going to be a pro, I can't wait to be in the MLB, I'd be disappointed. But I played, I enjoyed it, I loved it. It taught me mental toughness and different things and how to work as a team and how to work towards goals. And again, you look backwards and connect those dots backwards, and it's like baseball was for a reason.
Every single thing you did led you to right where you're sitting.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no right or wrong. There's no regrets. There's no nothing. You just
Make the best possible choices that you can, and
you just do everything to your best ability and be a good person.
Never ends.
Yeah.
You know, it's just always that way, one day at a time. Every day is a new chance to either screw up or make a good decision. So,
and with that, doing what we do, doing what you do, you don't get good at any of this without screwing a lot of shit up along the way.
definitely.
So I've had a lot of times in the paint booth when I've called you and I'm like, what in the hell am I doing wrong here because I'm having an issue? And you're like, all right, well, just what do you use? Where are you at? What are you doing?
Decode it, see what all the moving parts are, and figure out which one was the wrong one.
A big one for me when I was learning how to TIG weld, I guess I just wasn't prepping the metal enough, and because I learned how to MIG early on, and I got pretty good at it. But Nick had bought a TIG, and he was pretty entry level with it, and I just saw the thing like glowing in the corners like a magical chest with like a gold glow around it. I was like, man, what is that? And I've seen back in the day watching like Jesse James and all the bike building shows and stuff, the fabricator with the TIG in his hand just looks sick. I'm like, look at this guy, he's just building a motorcycle frame. He's got these two things in his hands and he's just gluing this thing together.
Yeah.
So I saw the TIG and I was trying to learn how to do it. I just looked up some YouTube videos and tried, and I was like, wow, that's how it works. And I remember sending you 50 pictures a day. You were probably gonna block my number, but I was like, man, like I'm doing it, you know. And then I tried to like weld my first whatever it was together, because I was just doing little samples on pieces of plate and sheet metal and stuff. And then I tried to assemble something and weld it, and my welds were all boogered, and they had little air pockets. They just weren't. I'm like, this isn't what I was practicing. And I learned. I was asking. We know a couple guys that are 50+ year welding career guys that are just mind blowing. And I asked the one guy, I said, man, what am I doing wrong? And he's like, well, it's filthy. You gotta clean it more. So I cleaned it. It got a little bit better, but he's like, it's still not clean enough. I'm like, what do you mean? I cleaned it for 5 minutes. He's like, clean it for 10, you know? So I went back and cleaned it. And then the next weld was a little better. And then once I got the cleanliness down, I started working on the actual form and making the welds look uniform and look good and all that. But I just, you know, I saw the welder and I was like, that's something I want to do. And I just went for it. And the videos I was watching were so elementary. They were like, this is called a welding hood. These are called gloves, you know. And I'm like, okay, let's get to the good stuff. But yeah, it's crazy how you just adapt as you're going and you just learn. The hardest part of getting good at something is learning how to diagnose issues. So if you're having an issue, why is the issue happening? Anybody could do something if it's perfect, you know, like bench welding brand new metal right out of the mill. It's like gonna be clean and go right together. But you grab a rusty piece and you're trying to do something with it, you gotta know how to do it, otherwise it's gonna be a headache.
And the first several times you do it, it'll be frustrating, but you get better and better.
Yeah.
So,
Figure out the mistakes, correct them, and keep moving forward.
Well, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
Appreciate you coming on,
We
man.
can probably do this 10 more times and not even,
Not even make a
close.
dent.
you know, I have been hoping to answer questions that you guys have, you know. Lately, you know, my dad's still kicking and a lot of times when I talk to him or if I'm over there, I try to think of things that I can ask him the next time I see him. You know, I've asked him about his dad, you know, and what things were like in those days and whatever. So, you know, I hope I answer any questions you guys have while I'm still around and, you know, looking forward to coming up here more and as long as it's warm, of course.
Yeah. It's warm in the car, it's always warm in the shop.
No excuses.
But yeah, you know, looking forward to seeing Ella grow up and then whatever other munchkins come along with you guys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we just doing it,
yeah,
chasing the dream.
yeah,
So
cool.
but yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah,
it's good we
glad
finally
we
got to do
it.
this. We're gonna do another one. We're gonna have to do a video call or
Yeah, that'd be
something, and
You gotta give us old guys a little time to take a nap before we do it though.
this is getting
I think
late
I
for
might
you.
be an old guy too.
Yeah, where are we at now? We're it's after midnight, so
Jeopardy is definitely not on anymore.
Yeah.
prune juice is actually warm.
Yeah, street lights are on, I gotta get home.
So, well, thank you,
Thank you, this was awesome.
Kyle.
We'll
Glad
do
you
this
came
some
on
more.
too, and
Yeah.
we needed to do this one together for sure.
Yeah.
We need to do one together for sure as well, and go over.
Yeah, now that my nerves are calmed and
We get 5, 6 people that watch this, and
Yeah.
you know, that's it.
Yeah.
So,
I just don't want to hear my voice because I know I'm going to be like,
yeah, you sound like an idiot.
I sound like that.
No,
Well-
I've been looking forward to this, you know, I've never been good at talking about myself, and I've never thought that what I do is anything special, but being a teacher for so long, you kind of have to, you know, tell them, okay, I've done this and I've done that, and now I'm gonna show you.
Yeah,
you
this
know.
works. Yeah, this definitely doesn't work.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, I hope to teach this to as many people as I can while I'm still breathing.
Yeah, you're definitely an expert in your craft.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. And you need to, I know it's easier said than done because I'm the same way, but you need to give yourself more credit because
Everybody's always so excited when you come to town too.
Yeah,
You know, it's
you're like a
pretty cool, man.
superstar.
You know, all our friends and all our local people that we deal with and everything, you know, when they find out you're coming up, they're like, man, I hope I get to see him while he's in town.
Yeah.
You know, World of Wheels, everybody was so ecstatic that you were coming up, and
Yeah.
you know, even and then you know, for coming up for Ella's birthday, and you know, everybody was so happy to see you there. And,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good time. I'm glad we get to hang. And,
Yeah, we'll do that more.
Yeah.
It's good to be sharing, you know, the business with you guys, you know, you guys are carrying it way further than I ever could even hope to. And I always laugh thinking my grandfather, when we were kids, he's like, you're all gonna be professional shit squeezers. You know?
Look at us now.
It's like, yeah, we made it.
Professional idiots.
Yep.
So, all right, well, thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
I'm heading I'm heading to Tennessee tomorrow and then back to South Carolina on the weekend, so.
Safe travels back home, and you know, we'll definitely do this again, and you'll have still plenty of photos to show you, and the occasional questions on what the hell we're doing around.
Yeah, I keep telling my dad, we gotta get him out here and
Yep.
have one with him.
I think we might have to bring this to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be there in November.
Yep.
We'll have to pick his brain a little
So
bit.
we'll do this right in his backyard.
Yeah,
Perfect. Perfect weather down there too.
yeah.
His will be like 10 minutes long. It'll be like,
Yeah, that guy's an idiot. What more do you want to know?
that's all there is to it. The guy's a moron.
You guys were listening to me from the start.
I
I can't
told
tell you
you.
how many times he's told me, if you'd have listened to me from the start, you wouldn't have been through it.
I like to learn things hard way, okay? Yeah, that's all I got time. But, well, everybody, we got more episodes coming. We got more interviews coming. Plenty more content. And we look forward to the next one. Hope everybody likes it, subscribes,
All
shares it.
5 or 6 of you.
That's it. All 5 of you need to all
5 of yins.
share
Hit
this
that
around.
like
And,
button or whatever. it
yeah,
is.
whatever that thing is that people do with the YouTube stuff. Go ahead and do it.
Smash that like button, guys.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get, I've been filming a lot of stuff that I've been doing. I never used to even like take pictures. There's so many things I've built. And
Yeah, I'm guilty of that
whatever,
too.
I don't even have pictures. I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But I've been, you know, doing some videos lately, and I am hoping to get maybe a YouTube channel going as soon as I figure out how to edit. But the car that I'm building, you know, I'm hoping the whole car is handmade from the back on the English wheels.
I think we should do one on the car specifically too, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, we can do a video call and you know, we'll get some imagery together on all that. We'll get an
Yeah.
album together and some photos and some stuff.
Yeah,
and
I got
highlight it and
500 pictures, you know, of so far, and just a little bit of video. But
I think even scooting through that, we could probably tie up 2 hours of time talking on that car.
yeah, because every piece is handmade, and I could talk about the grill shell for an hour.
Yeah.
You know, so
Cool.
Cool.
Well, good night, guys.
thank you. Good
See
night.
everybody on the next one, and thanks again.